You are not the same person you were 10 years ago. You are not even the same person you were last year. The mind you are using right now to watch this, it was built piece by piece, word by word, thought by thought, and here is what nobody told you. It can be rebuilt. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they were not philosophers who sat in clean rooms writing about peace. They were men who faced war, slavery, exile, plague, and betrayal. Men who built empires and lost everything. And they discovered something that modern neuroscience is only now beginning to confirm. The words you speak to yourself are not decoration. They are architecture. They build the house your mind lives in. And most people right now, today in this country, are living in a house they never consciously designed. A house built from other people's fears, other people's limits, other people's definitions of what is possible. Today that ends. I am going to give you 7 words, not sentences, not paragraphs. 7 words that carry 2,000 years of Stoic wisdom and the power to dismantle every lie your mind has accepted as truth. These words will not comfort you. Comfort is what keeps people small. These words will challenge you, stretch you, and if you stay until the end of this video, and I need you to stay until the end, you will leave here different than you arrived. Not because of me, because of what has always been true about you, that you just haven't had the language to claim yet. Let's begin. Word 1. Mantoto mori. Remember that you will die. You just flinched. I saw it or felt it. That flicker of resistance when the mind encounters something it spends its entire existence trying to avoid. But stay with me, because this is not a dark word. This is possibly the most liberating word in human history. In ancient Rome, when a general returned victorious from war, chariot rolling through the streets, crowds screaming his name, the city laid at his feet, there was a slave whose only job was to ride beside him and whisper 4 words in his ear. Memento mori. Remember you will die, not to shame him, not to diminish the triumph, but to keep him human, to keep him present, to remind him that this moment right now was the only moment that actually existed, because the Romans knew what we have forgotten in our age of infinite scroll and endless distraction. When you forget that your time is finite, you treat it like it is worthless. When you remember that your time is finite, truly remember, not just intellectually know everything changes. Think about the last week of your life. Really think about it. How many hours did you spend in low-grade anxiety about things that will never happen? How many evenings did you give away to a screen, convincing yourself you would live fully tomorrow? Next week, after the promotion, after the relationship, after things calm down. Tomorrow is a check you are writing on an account that might be empty. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man alive in the 2nd century AD, commanding 30 legions, ruling 60 million people, wrote this to himself in his private journal. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. He was not being morbid, he was being strategic. Because when you genuinely feel the weight of your own mortality, the nonsense falls away instantly. The petty argument with a coworker, irrelevant. The anxiety about what strangers think of your choices, dissolved. The procrastination on the one thing that actually matters, over. Steve Jobs, before he became the myth, when he was still a man, sitting in a doctor's office, with a diagnosis he did not expect, said this: "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." Modern psychology calls this terror management theory, the idea that our awareness of death is the engine behind most of human behavior. But the Stoics got there 2,000 years earlier. They just used it differently. They used it to live more, not less, to love more boldly, work more deliberately, speak more honestly. Because when you carry memento mori, not as a fear, but as a compass, you stop asking, what will people think, and start asking, how do I want to have spent this one unrepeatable life? Say it this morning. Say it quietly to yourself before your feet touch the floor. Memento mori. Let it strip away everything that is not real. Word 2, amorati. Love your fate. Not accept it. Not tolerate it. Not survive it. Love it. I know what you're thinking. you're thinking, love the cancer diagnosis, love the bankruptcy, love the person who walked out and took everything with them. Yes, and I will tell you exactly why. Not as philosophy, but as the single most practical survival tool ever discovered. Friedrich N. Eyre, who suffered chronic illness, rejection, profound loneliness, and eventual madness, wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amorati. That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, still less concealed, but love it." That word necessary is the key. The Stoics believed that everything that happens is part of a rational, interconnected universe, what they called the logos. And your resistance to what has already happened is not wisdom, it is waste. Think about how much mental energy you burn every week in the mode of "this shouldn't be happening," the traffic jam that shouldn't be there, the relationship that should have worked, the career that should have gone differently, the body that should be healthier, the family that should be easier. The Stoics called this the difference between what is up to us and what is not up to us. And they were brutally honest. Almost everything that has already happened is not up to you. Your resistance to it costs you everything. Your love of it, your willingness to find the purpose inside the pain, gives you back your power. Thomas Edison's laboratory burned to the ground in 1914. Every prototype, every notebook, 20 years of work, destroyed in a single night. He was 67 years old. His son found him standing in the courtyard, watching his life's work become ash. Edison turned to him and said, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." By morning, he had already started rebuilding. That is not denial. That is not toxic positivity. That is a man who had trained himself deliberately, consciously, to find what is useful in what is broken. Amati is not about pretending things don't hurt. They do. They should. You are human. But there is a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the event. Suffering is the story you tell about the event. The endless loop of "why me? This is unfair. Everything is ruined." Amarati is the moment you interrupt that loop and ask, what is this making possible? What am I learning? What does this force me to become? Epictetus was a slave. He was physically tortured. His master once broke his leg to prove a point. And from that experience, from that specific unbearable pain, came the philosophy that shaped Marcus Aurelius, that shaped the Stoic tradition that is shaping this conversation right now. The worst thing that happened to him became the greatest thing he gave the world. Say it today. Say it when something goes wrong, and something will go wrong. Amarati. I love my fate, not because it is easy, but because I trust that I am being forged, not broken. Word 3. Discipline. Not the word you say when you're motivated, the word you practice when you are not. There is a lie woven into American culture, into every advertisement, every self-help headline, every productivity hack, and it goes like this. Freedom is the absence of constraint. That lie has destroyed more potential than any obstacle ever could. The Stoics believed the exact opposite. They believed that discipline was not the enemy of freedom. It was the only path to it, that the undisciplined man is not free. He is a slave to whatever he feels in any given moment. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. Think about the people you admire most, not the ones who got lucky, the ones who built something real. Michael Jordan, who practiced jump shots in an empty gym when no one was watching, long after everyone else had gone home. Kobe Bryant, who was already in the gym at 4 a.m. when his teammates were still asleep. Marcus Aurelius, who woke before dawn to write, not because it was comfortable, but because the practice of self-examination was more important than sleep. What they understood, what the Stoics codified 2 millennia ago, is that the moment you choose comfort over growth, you are not choosing rest, you are choosing slow erosion. Because here is what modern neuroscience confirms. The brain is constantly changing. Neuroplasticity, it is not a metaphor, it is a biological fact. Every choice you make is literally rewiring your neural architecture. Every time you choose the hard thing, You strengthen pathways of willpower. Every time you choose the easy thing, you strengthen pathways of avoidance. You are always building something. The question is what? Joe Willink, Navy SEAL, decorated combat veteran, someone who has seen what human beings are capable of under the most extreme conditions, distilled it to 3 words. Discipline equals freedom. The disciplined runner is not a prisoner to the road. He is free to run 10 miles when the undisciplined man cannot run 1. The disciplined writer is not a prisoner to the page. She is free to finish what the undisciplined person can only dream of starting. What are you failing to be disciplined about right now? Not as a judgment, as a genuine question, because that is exactly the area where you are least free, where life is happening to you instead of through you. The Stoics had a practice called ascese, deliberate self-denial. Marcus Aurelius would sleep on the floor. Seneca would practice voluntary poverty for days at a time, eating simple food, wearing rough clothing. Not because they had to, he was a millionaire, but to train the mind to know it could survive without comfort, to keep the self from becoming soft. You don't have to sleep on the floor, but you do have to practice doing the hard thing when the easy thing is available. Say the word today, not as a wish, as a commitment, discipline. I choose it every day, especially today. Word for enough. I want you to sit with that word for a moment before I say anything else. Enough. When did you last believe it? We live in an economy built on your insufficiency. Every advertisement you have ever seen was engineered with billions of dollars of research behind it to make you feel that you are not enough without their product, their car, their diet, their app, their program, their face cream, their fitness routine. The machine requires your dissatisfaction to function, and it has been running inside your head for so long that you can no longer tell the difference between a genuine aspiration and an implanted anxiety. The Stoics called this trap false goods, things the world tells you to chase that have no actual capacity to make you whole. Money beyond sufficiency, status beyond dignity, approval from people who don't know you, pleasure beyond what the body genuinely needs. Seneca, who was fabulously wealthy, who lived in one of the finest homes in Rome, who advised emperors, wrote this: "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." He wasn't telling you not to want things. He was pointing to something most people spend their entire lives missing. The destination keeps moving because it was never real. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The happiest people in documented psychological research are not the wealthiest. They are the people who know the difference between enough and more, and who have consciously chosen enough. Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi death camps. He lost everything: his manuscript, his family, his freedom. When he was liberated, he had nothing except his mind, and from that place of absolute nothing, he wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That is a man who discovered enough, not because the world gave it to him, because he chose it." Here is the practice. Not positive thinking, not affirmation, a question. If I already had everything I needed to begin living fully, what would I do differently today? The answer to that question is your real life. The life you keep postponing until some imaginary threshold of ready or worthy or finished. You are already at the threshold. You are always at the threshold. Say the word, mean it. Enough. I am enough right now, as I am to begin. Word 5. Stillness. In a world that rewards noise, that measures worth in activity, that treats busyness as a virtue and silence as a sign of failure, stillness is not a retreat, it is a weapon. And almost no one has access to it. Think about the last time your mind was genuinely quiet. Not distracted into quiet by a screen or a substance. Actually quiet when you could hear yourself think, not the anxious chatter, not the to-do list, not the replay of past conversations, but something deeper. Most people have never experienced that. Most people are terrified of it because in stillness the truth arrives, and the truth is not always comfortable. But here is what the Stoics knew that our culture refuses to acknowledge. All the clarity you have ever needed already exists inside you. You just can't hear it over the noise. The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. Marcus Aurelius, Ryan Holiday, in his modern synthesis of Stoic wisdom, writes about how the greatest leaders in history, from Lincoln to Churchill to Newton, made their most important decisions not in the middle of activity, but in moments of deliberate stillness. Isaac Newton did not discover gravity in a crowded marketplace. He was alone in a garden, forced into isolation by plague, with nothing but time and a quiet mind. That enforced stillness gave humanity calculus, the laws of motion, and the theory of gravity. Einstein's greatest breakthroughs came not from laboratory equipment, but from thought experiments, from sitting still and asking, what if? What would you discover if you gave your mind 30 minutes of genuine stillness every day? The Stoics practiced what they called attention, a form of vigilant, disciplined self-observation, not meditation in the Eastern sense, but a rigorous daily practice of watching the mind without being swept away by it. What am I thinking right now? Is this thought true? Is this emotion mine? Or is it something I absorbed from the environment? What does my wisest self actually believe about this situation? These questions can only be asked in stillness. The answers only arrive in stillness. And here is the practical truth. The decisions you make from a place of noise, from urgency, anxiety, comparison, emotional reactivity, are almost always wrong, or at least smaller than they need to be. The decisions you make from stillness are the ones that change your life. Practice it 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Sit with your own mind without giving it anything to consume. Let the discomfort arise, let it pass, and in the space that remains, listen. That is where you actually live. Stillness. Return to it every day. Word 6. Virtue. The most misunderstood word in the English language. The word that has been neutered by centuries of religious association until it means something thin and cautious and small. But in the Stoic tradition, virtue arete was not about being polite. It was about being excellent. Fully, completely, ruthlessly excellent at being a human being. The Stoics believed in 4 cardinal virtues, not 10 commandments, not a list of rules. 4 capacities: wisdom, the ability to see clearly; courage, the willingness to act rightly when it costs you something; justice, the commitment to treating others with what they deserve; temperance, the discipline to stop before excess. And here is the claim that separates Stoicism from every other philosophy you have encountered. These virtues are the only good. Everything else, money, status, health, pleasure, even life itself, is preferred but not required for a good life. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, shipwrecked on the coast of Athens at the age of 30. He lost everything, every possession, every plan, every certainty about the future. He walked into a bookstore and read Xenophon's account of Socrates, and something cracked open. He did not rebuild his old life, he began a new one. From that shipwreck came one of history's most influential philosophical traditions, the tradition that produced Marcus Aurelius, that influenced Christianity, that shaped the founding fathers, that underlies modern cognitive behavioral therapy. From total loss came total transformation, because Zeno understood that what he had lost were externals. What he carried, his capacity for reason, for virtue, for wisdom, was indestructible. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one Marcus Aurelius. This is not abstract. This is the most practical question you can ask about any situation. What would the wisest, most virtuous version of me do right now? Not what would make me comfortable, not what would make others approve of me, not what is easiest. What would the person I am trying to become actually do? That question, when you ask it honestly, when you sit with it in stillness, is a compass. It has never once pointed in the wrong direction. The world can take your money, it can take your health, it can take people you love, it can take your freedom, it cannot take your virtue. It cannot take the choice of how you face what is happening to you. That is not a consolation. That is the entire game. Virtue, build it, protect it, choose it. Especially when choosing it costs you something. That cost is not a punishment. It is the price of being someone worth becoming. Word 7. Begin. Not tomorrow. Not after you feel ready. Not when the circumstances are better. Now, this is the word that separates everyone who ever changed their life from everyone who intended to. It is not the smallest word. It is the most terrifying one, because beginning means leaving the comfortable prison of potential behind. The prison where you are still possible, still unlaunched, still protected by the excuse of not having started yet. Where failure is impossible because you haven't tried. Where the dream is still perfect because it hasn't met reality. Beginning ends all of that, and it is the only thing that makes anything real. The Stoics had a concept called the reserve clause, hoc recuso. When you take an action, you commit to it fully, but you hold in reserve the knowledge that the outcome is not in your control. You say, I will do this, and if something prevents me, so be it. This is not passive. This is the most active stance a human being can take. You act completely without attachment to the outcome. You do your part and trust the logos to do the rest. Marcus Aurelius began every morning, despite the plague that killed millions of his subjects, despite the wars on multiple fronts, despite the betrayals within his own family, despite his failing health, he woke up and began. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for?" That is not motivation. That is something deeper. That is a man who had found his reason. What is yours? Editor, pause here. Full 3 seconds of silence. Let the music drop completely. Then music. Complete silence for 3 seconds. Then music returns slow and building. You have been given at minimum this one day, this one morning, this 1 hour, this video which you chose to sit with instead of 1,000 easier things. That choice is already a beginning. But beginnings do not compound unless they are followed by the next beginning and the one after that. The Stoics called it the practice, not a destination, not an achievement, but a daily, ordinary, unremarkable practice of choosing to be more aligned with who you are capable of becoming. It is not glamorous. The journal entry Marcus Aurelius wrote the morning before a battle looks exactly like the journal entry he wrote on a quiet day in Rome. Because the practice does not depend on the circumstances. The practice is the circumstances. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in a prison on Robben Island. He was given 30 minutes of reading a day, 30. And he used those 30 minutes to become the man who, when freed, the moral authority to lead a nation away from apartheid without a bloodbath. That is what beginning does, even beginning with almost nothing. What is the thing you have been saying? You will start the book, the business, the difficult conversation, the practice, the apology, the honest life. You do not need more information. You do not need a better plan. You do not need the stars to align or the fear to disappear. You need to begin. 7 words. Memento mori. Remember that you will die, and let that make everything matter more. Amorati. Love your fate, not despite what it contains, but because of what it is making you. Discipline. Choose the hard thing because the easy thing has never once led anywhere worth going. Enough. You already are. Begin from here. Stillness. Return to it every day. That is where you actually live. Virtue. Build it. Protect it. It is the only thing that cannot be taken from you. Begin right now with what you have from where you are. The Stoics were not optimists. They did not believe the world was fair or that effort always produces the desired outcome. They believed something rarer and more useful, that the quality of a human life is determined not by what happens to it, but by what it does with what happens to it. You have always known this. Somewhere beneath the noise and the conditioning and the accumulated weight of other people's expectations, you have always known this. Today is not a special day. It is an ordinary day. And ordinary days taken one at a time are all that any life is ever made of. Make this one count. Not for me, not for the likes or the comments or the algorithm, for the person you are always capable of becoming. They are waiting. They have always been waiting. Begin. If something in this video shifted something in you, even one word, even one sentence, share it with someone who needs it. Drop in the comments which of the 7 words hit the hardest. I read every single one. Subscribe and step inside the Stoic Power Club to build an unshakable mind. Leave a comment below with the word untouchable. Not the watered-down version, but the real thing. The version that costs something, the version that works. And remember, you are not here to be comfortable. You are here to be complete. I'll see you in the next one.